What's going on, guys? So we have the new quarter report from NCSoft kind of showing how much all of their games are making. And of course, we're going to be talking about Blade Soul. Really, the thing is, you can hide the player base numbers, you can hide all this stuff, but the financial report you can't lie on. And it really shows how a game is doing depending on how much money it's making. Pretty simple. So right here, we see Blade Soul is this color. So you'll see for a while they had around 15 billion Korean money. So keep that in mind, this is Korean money. But they made 15 billion in the fourth quarter of 2020. Now, the fourth quarter is, of course, the end, so it's going to be the last 3 months of the year. So that would be October, November, and December. So essentially, from October to December of 2020, Blade Soul was making 15 billion in that fourth quarter, which is really good. You'll see the steady decline of the game over the years, though. So you see it went from 14 billion in the first quarter of 2021, and you'll see Blade Soul had a huge drop from 14 billion to 9 billion within the first quarter to second quarter of 2021, which is a pretty big example of how the game was declining very quickly. This was mainly during the period of people waiting for Unreal Engine 4 to come out, and a lot of people getting annoyed with how long it had been delayed. Eventually, Korea did get it in June of 2021, so eventually you'll see a little bit of an increase here. You'll see it went from 9 billion up back to 10 billion Korean money just because of the release of Unreal Engine 4. But really, it wasn't that big of an increase that we thought it would be. A lot of people assumed when Unreal Engine 4 came out in Korea, it would go back up from like 9 billion up to 14 billion again, but it really only gained 1 billion, which again, only 1 billion in Korean money is still a lot of money, but it's not the huge jump that people were expecting. And then you'll see for the fourth quarter of 2021, Blade Soul went back down to 9 billion. So this is one of those things where the game is in a steady decline. It really only had a little bit of a spark of an increase because of Unreal Engine 4 over in Korea, but with Unreal Engine 4 coming out in September of 2021 for the West, it really had no impact on the money that Blade Soul made for the company of NCSoft, because honestly, the player base in the West is kind of non-existent. I mean, for NA, it's maybe 2,000 to 3,000 being generous, and for EU, it's maybe around the same, a little bit more maybe. But it's really not that many players, and because of that, even with the top whales, they're not bringing in a lot of money overall for NCSoft. Evil Does Harm did the math a while back, like before he quit Blade Soul, we're only like 5% or less of the total revenue for Blade Soul for NCSoft, because the Korean player base is just so much bigger than ours in the West. So it's really not surprised that the revenue report for the fourth quarter of 2021 didn't really go up, even with Unreal Engine 4 releasing for us, because it really didn't bring that many players back to the game, mainly because the biggest issues of the game were still prevalent. The pay to win was increasing like crazy and hasn't changed at all. It's just gotten worse over the years. The gear grind is insane, and the gap between a free-to-play player and a paying player is huge. There's so many base issues of the game that just have not been fixed. And even with Unreal 4 coming out, it really didn't fix all the core optimization issues. There still are some prevalent issues like Codret Layer. I'm looking at you. Terrible to play through that, even with Unreal Engine 4. So a lot of people who joined the game didn't even really stick around that long, because they're like, we waited like 3-4 years for this and it's not even that good. So it was quite unfortunate, and really you'll see in the revenue report of how low we are. Blade Soul is at an all-time low. I really do feel like for the first quarter of 2022, I think it's just going to go down, honestly, because what's after Unreal Engine 4, that was like the big update for Blade Soul. That was the biggest thing we could get. Besides that, I mean, we have a few more third specializations coming out, like maybe like a new storyline. It's just not really enough, I feel like, to keep the game rising in revenue. They'd have to do a complete overhaul and maybe change so many systems. I don't really feel like the game's going to increase in revenue. I wouldn't be surprised by the first quarter of 2022 if the game is down to 8 billion. I wouldn't be surprised at that point. So it's unfortunate, and I feel like Blade Soul is on a steady decline. It really is showing in the number. The only reason why we had the increase was Unreal Engine 4, but after that, it's just straight back down to decline. Like, it's sad to see, and really the numbers don't lie at all. Even over in Korea, the game is just not really popular. People are either playing Lost Ark or really Black Desert at this point, in terms of like MMO content in Korea. So even in the West now with Lost Ark coming out. So it's just unfortunate, but Blade Soul is kind of on a steady decline, and I believe it will continue over the years. So we'll see how long the game lasts. We'll see how people, if anyone joins back or they have any major content updates to increase the revenue. But as of right now, Blade Soul is at the all-time low, and I think it will continue. Anyways, thank you guys for watching the video. Just wanted to provide some content on how Blade Soul is doing, because again, the numbers don't lie. You don't have to announce your player base, but when the game's at an all-time low for revenue, it shows that the game's not doing too well. Anyways, appreciate you guys watching the video as always. See you guys in the next one real soon.